And we're live.
Hello and welcome to tonight's Hershey All Things Diversity event, the State of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion in Our Community, Part 2. I'm Lauren Turnbull with Hershey Entertainment and Resorts, and I'm also a member of our diversity planning group. Hershey All Things Diversity is a free series of programs to create awareness and promote acceptance and inclusion in our community. It is coordinated by representatives from Derry Township, the Hershey Story Museum, Derry Township School District, Milton Hershey School, the Hershey Company, Penn State Health, Hershey Entertainment and Resorts, and Hershey Trust Company. The events are sponsored in part by the Hershey Company, Hershey Entertainment and Resorts, Milton Hershey School, Penn State Health, and the Giant Company. Tonight, we are pleased to welcome a panel of speakers who represent Hershey's largest employers. The speakers include Lynette Chappell-Williams, Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer of Penn State Health, Alicia Petross, Chief Diversity Officer, the Hershey Company, Leslie Ferraro, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, Hershey Entertainment Resorts, and Barb Nichols, Director of Recruitment, and Fonati Abrokwa, Special Assistant to the President for Diversity and Inclusion at Milton Hershey School. Each panelist will provide an overview of the initiatives in their respective organizations to seek, attract, and retain a diverse talent pool. And then we will open things up for questions from the audience. We encourage you to write your questions in the YouTube chat box, and they will be shared with our panelists once we've gone through each of their summary. First, I'd like to kick it over to Lynette Chappell-Williams, Vice President and Chief Diversity Officer of Penn State Health. Lynette?
Great, thank you so much, and happy Wednesday to everyone. I am absolutely thrilled to be able to share what we're doing at Penn State Health. Problem is, I asked for 8 hours and was told I could not have that. So we're going to keep it as short as possible in terms of going through. So for our health system, which is relatively new, Hershey Medical Center has been around for more than 50 years, but since that time, our organization has acquired other hospitals or built other hospitals. So we are now close to 19,000 employees within the 4 regions. It was in 2020, shortly after the George Floyd death, that we held 11 town hall meetings focusing on race relations, and it expanded to include other aspects of diversity. And from those meetings, we generated a lot of input from our workforce about the kinds of things that we can do to recruit individuals to our organization, as well as not only to retain them, but to engage them, that they get up each morning and they want to come to work. So what are the things that we could do? So we started off with creating organizational goals. We identified 5 initiatives, and I would call that the foundational work. We established one policy, actually amended a policy that required that we had diversity in the interview pool. So for those of us that follow affirmative action regulations or federal regulations related to employment matters, we're expected to have diversity in the applicant pool, but what we often find is that individuals, by the time they get to the interviews, you don't have that diversity anymore. So we actually established a policy that said, before you can go forward with the search, there needed to be diversity in the interview pool. If you didn't have it, that was an opportunity to kind of go back and look at your recruiting practices. We also established another policy, or actually amended it to include a 0 tolerance for bias or discrimination, meaning if an individual knowingly engaged in discrimination, there was no progressive discipline, their employment was terminated. And that was to make sure that it was clear that we were very serious about this. And even as we were talking about having respect within our organization, we also felt it was important that those that we deal with, meaning our patients, engaged in mutual respect. So we actually established a policy that was one of the first in the country in terms of a written policy that provided that our expectation was that our patients operated from a perspective of respect, meaning we would not tolerate bias or discrimination from our patients. And something that happens a lot in the medical field is that individuals ask to change out who's caring for them because of that individual's aspect of diversity. So an individual may say, I don't want this person, they're Jewish, that I don't want them taking care of me. This policy basically said you can ask for a different provider for any reason, as long as it does not have to do with their aspect of diversity. We won't honor those requests. And we found that other organizations have adopted that same policy as well. It's great in terms of continuity of care. It's awesome as a retention engagement tool for our employees, because they know that we will protect them from that type of action. So then we went on in terms of saying, what else do we need to do? One of the things that's been successful is establishing what we call our business employee resource groups. We have them in each one of our regions. So we now have 25 across the 4 regions, and then also established another 4, soon to be 4. We're in the process of establishing those for our clinician workforce, because that's some of the needs that they deal with are a little different from others. So after all this input from these different meetings from the 2020, we decided to sort of expand it to get feedback again in terms of understanding what we needed to be doing, and looked internally and externally this way, and created what we call our diversity playbook, which identified 6 priorities and 6 what they call breakthrough strategies to focus on those things that were more important. So we had a cross-section of folks from within our organization, and then some community leaders in each of our regions that gave us input in terms of the things that we could do. The thing that came out as being the highest priority, accountability. How do we make sure that every single person understands what their role can and should be in making sure that our commitment to diversity and inclusion moves forward? And so to make that happen, we established a training program that's called the Inclusion Academy, that has several different components. One focuses on how do we provide the most culturally responsive care for our increasingly diverse patient population? How do we create a situation where individuals interact with each other in a respectful way? And then including our leaders, what is it that our leaders can be doing? So to give individuals an opportunity to address workplace issues, because we know unconscious bias and microaggressions really can create a difficult work environment. We created something called the Upstander Cafe, which is the first Friday of every month, where individuals can come together, share situations that they've witnessed or experienced that would constitute unconscious bias, and then they collectively identify ways to address those particular types of behaviors. And they walk away feeling empowered, which is the goal in terms of what kinds of things that they can do. And part of it is encouraging individuals to understand we want them to take action for them to intervene when they see something like that happen. We also created a program that we refer to as MUBU. It's the Microaggression Unconscious Bias Education Program. And this is again focusing on how unconscious bias can impact the work environment. In January, we'll be rolling out a really kind of, I think, a unique form where our employees will be able to choose, and we're going to start with a subset of about 1,000 employees. They will be able to choose how they want to learn about microaggressions and unconscious bias. So they have a choice of doing it through art or music or theater or stories or making masks. So they can choose that. And then they will do that for the first part of the educational session. And then there will be someone who will sort of take that information and figure out, this is how you address the issues going forward. I'm going to stop at that point so that I make sure I stay in time and turn it back over to you, Laura.
Amazing. Thanks so much, Lynette. Some really fascinating information that I'm positive we'll have some great questions to follow up on. Next, I'd like to toss it over to Alicia Petross, Chief Diversity Officer with the Hershey Company.
Thanks so much for the chance to be here with everyone tonight, both panelists and Hershey residents. It's wonderful to have this opportunity to share some of the things that we're working on at the Hershey Company. Similar to Penn State Health, in 2020, we really intensified our long-standing commitment to inclusion, diversity, and equity. And we did so through co-creation. So we spent and we took time to talk with our employees in our manufacturing facilities, at our corporate locations, and employees around the globe. And we asked them honestly what was going well about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what should we be doing differently. And we got a lot of feedback. And so we were happy to hear that some of the things we were doing were really working. But we were also humbled to hear that we could and should be doing more. From those conversations, we created a new enterprise inclusion framework that we call the Pathways Project. And it has 3 pillars. The first pillar is about joining. So it's vital for our business that our workforce represent all of the consumers that we serve around the globe. This is a mandate from our amazing CEO, Michelle Buck, our board of directors, and Michelle's team. And we take this very seriously, such that we have added goals which are linked to the compensation of our executive committee and key business groups across our organization. We also created a new supplier diversity strategy. And so we are focused on tripling our spend with diverse suppliers by 2030. And we have goals and milestones in place for that. The second pillar of our framework is around growing careers for our current workforce. This is a place where we felt and heard so much energy from our employees. And so here we take a look at promotion rates, development rates, how groups within the company are moving throughout different employee experiences. And we have aims to increase promotions of women and diverse employees, and to continue to provide opportunities for everyone's career to flourish. Now, we know that if you're human, you likely have some type of unconscious bias. It happens to all of us. And so here we focus on required unconscious bias experiences for all global employees twice a year. And our approach is that we have our employees watch some video content that's very progressive on their own. Then they come together in a small team with their leader, and the leader takes them through a conversation. And so we talk about the impact of unconscious bias in terms of how we relate to each other, how that relates to our longstanding values of togetherness, and how that impacts our business. And so for us, we believe that diversity is good and required for our business. There's no mistaking the link to greater levels of collaboration and innovation when diversity and inclusion levels are higher. And so we measure those things. So these unconscious bias discussions are really important, and our employees look forward to having these conversations. We've also equipped leaders with the ability to talk about tough things that are happening in our world, because we're all human. If something is happening that we are seeing online, we really can't leave that in the parking lot or outside of our office. And so it's important for us that our leaders be able to relate to everyone on the team. And so we provided resources to do that as well. In the third pillar of Pathways, this is about reaching out to advance equity. This is where we are investing our brand equity with organizations, longstanding partners, and some new partners to advance equity. And true to our founders' mission, we really focus in on providing educational opportunities. And so we have worked with Fonati and team at Milton Hershey School to expand the pipeline and opportunities to provide more internships and apprenticeships and jobs for graduates of Milton Hershey School. And this is something that we take very seriously, and we are tripling our efforts in 23 on that front. We established a historic endowment with Thurgood Marshall College Fund to create a scholarship fund for students that are studying food science. And we know that that financial assistance is important. And hey, we hope to hire some of those graduates at some point. And we've also supported organizations like the Equal Justice Initiative an organization that works to provide fair legal counsel for underrepresented groups in America. And so these efforts are important, and our consumers are also important. Thanks to everybody here and everybody on this call, Hershey products are in 98% of US households. So it's important that we have a workforce that mirrors all of those consumers so that we can continue to develop products and services that our consumers love. And so within the strategy, we also have specific initiatives designed to garner more share with Black and Latino consumers. And some of the best work out of all of this is the fact that many of these initiatives are driven by our business resource groups. So these are volunteer organizations that are tied to the Pathways framework, and you don't have to be a member of these affinity groups to join. But these groups do three things. They influence company policy, they help develop talent, and they drive deeper business connections. So these groups are really coming of age. And we credit the Black Heritage Group with influencing the company to add Juneteenth as an incremental company holiday in the US. And there is a price tag associated with that, and the group did the benchmarking to make that a reality. Our Women's Business Resource Group similarly influenced the increase of our parental leave policy, which will go to 20 weeks effective January 1st of 2023. And we continually focus on transparency. This has been a big learning for us throughout the journey since 2020. So I and members of my team regularly share demographic updates, how we are progressing towards those goals held by our executive committee. This information is shared with our board of directors, Michelle and her teams, our business resource groups, and employees at large. So we have learned that transparency and co-creation are incredibly meaningful. We've also set some really ambitious goals. So by 2025, we want our US workforce to be at least 30% people of color and representation. We are well on our way at 27%, up from 21% in August of 2020. We are maintaining our pay equity accomplishment. So for US salaried employees, women and people of color earn $1 for $1 compared to their male colleagues. But wait, we want to do even better than that. So by 2025, we want to achieve pay equity across job families globally. That's a lot of work, but we have brilliant workforce analytics and total rewards teams, and I'm confident we're going to make that happen. So we're going to maintain that pay equity status. We have set a lot of other goals. And because we are really embracing transparency, if you check out our online 2021 ESG report, you'll see a 12-page modular section that talks about our various aims and how we're bringing those to life and how our employees are really front and center in these efforts. We have picked up some recognition along the way, but for me, the most important thing is knowing that every employee feels like they belong in our company, that they're getting a great experience, and that their career can flourish, and that they're extremely proud of all the products and services that we provide for the community. So I'll pause there. But again, it's great to have this chance to be here and to discuss with everyone.
Awesome. So much great information. Thanks so much, Alicia. Now I'd like to turn it over to Leslie Ferraro, Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer, Hershey Entertainment and Resorts.
Well, thank you. Thanks for asking me to join this evening. It's, it's great following the two ladies that just spoke. There's so much commonality just in talk about the intensity and intensifying the diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts that really happened in 2020. We can't control everything that was happening in the environment, but as a company, we really stepped forward with a strong commitment to act. And our commitment to ACT was, how do we have a stronger internal culture of advocacy and inclusion and really help our employees have a stronger voice? And so much of that work came from us making sure our employees were listened to. So we spent time and really stepped back and said, what are the three big pillars for us as a company? And no shock, right? It's culture, it's people, and it's community, which has everything to do with everyone on this call today. Culture for us had to do with driving a greater sense of just belonging and awareness. So much of what we do on an everyday basis is if we feel strongly that if you feel included, diversity will follow. And that is just about feeling safe in your workplace. So spending time and effort to do that. We spend a lot of time on really doing that deliberate and empathetic listening sessions over the past year/2 years. How did we ramp up our training, which I'll talk about, and then community. So much of what we share, and I know a lot of ladies on this call, just share best practices. What are you learning? What has worked? How do you tweak? What are we, looking at each other in the mirror and saying, and ourselves, and saying, we know we want to work faster. How do we do that together? And that's where making not only Hershey, for us, entertainment, a best place to work, but making Hershey as a community a best place to live. So with that, we're governed by our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. It's led, really by a diverse 12-person senior leadership group. I get the privilege of chairing that and helping champion our DE&I efforts. It starts at the top. We have folks who are sitting on that, such as Lauren. We have folks such as John Lawn, our president and chief executive officer, that really help push our initiatives forward. There's a lot that we leaned into in 2022 from a culture standpoint. We aligned on a corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion awareness calendar. Call it celebration calendar. One thing as a company we stepped back and said we wanted to do more of is share our employee spotlights, share better experiences, share people that look like each other to help attract new folks into our workforce. We needed to make sure, because everyone that loves the traffic they talk about in the summer, we are a peak destination specifically during certain months. And the good news is we're growing that hopefully year round. But being able to share and talk about a lot of our team members was such a big bet for us. We do have a new diversity, equity, inclusion website. So if you have the opportunity, please visit it. Our ESG report from 2021 is also housed there. It's a great place to really understand a lot of our true efforts. We've spent a lot of time in the community really establishing not only our strategic alliances and partnerships, but making sure that we have the right networks and we have the right connections for our team members. We want to and need to continue to grow our representation. So with that, we've spent a lot of time on how do we attract folks, specifically outside of just our full-time workforce. We are such a heavy, no shock, seasonal workforce. So the way we've had some success over the past 2 years was starting a Hershey Park internship leadership program, in addition to enhancing our hospitality internship program. So it's roughly 250 folks, kids, I should say, college kids from across the country, represented about 40 plus states. The great news this year, we had 70% of those folks that have come to us for the 3 to 4 months to spend time were diverse. So now our job is, how do they come back for year 2? How do they come back to be full-time team members? And that's where we're spending a lot of the time. So what is that next step for us? We're also spending time just to piggyback on a lot of the training and retention efforts, the unconscious bias, being in the hospitality field, as we all are in so many high touch point, different industries, but being that first point of interaction, our security team, doing implicit bias training, understanding what we're up against. Today, we have a very great accountability partner, a DE&I coach. His name is Shola Richards. If you hadn't had a chance, please Google him. He has spent, this is his 3rd time back in 3 years to Hershey, PA. He helped us really talk about courageous civility. He's challenged us as a team. So he spent 8 hours today doing listening sessions with our team members, understanding how we can continue to have better improvement year after year. So I look forward to hearing some of the generic feedback from him, but that is just one example. We have many other diversity, call it coaches and or educators that we use throughout the year. We partner so much with the Milton Hershey School, just knowing that they are, our core purpose is about providing value. We have over 45 to 50 Spartan interns throughout the year. We have so many of those great students that come spend time with us, learn different parts of our organization to help hopefully come back in that full circle as a job when they're done with college or the VOTAC world, or if they go serve. We want to be a place that they look to come back. And then from a community aspect, how do we continue to grow? How do we spend more time? One of the things that I know these ladies' teams, as well as our team, spend a lot of time on is a neighborhood resource guide. And what I mean by that is it is a guide for folks who come into Hershey, Pennsylvania, not just Hershey Entertainment Resorts, and need to understand and find a place where they can worship, where they can shop for ethnic food, where they can go get their hair done, for example. This resource guide toolkit has been a great assistance to us as we educate folks on where to go as we drive people to Hershey to live and also obviously work. So lots of, I'm sure like everyone go on for quite a bit, but lots of heavy lifting, very appreciative of just spending the time, sharing some. The last part I leave on is we have 6 employee resource groups that have really been our workhorses this year. We keep expanding that. This year we added 1 more, but that group, and I heard a lot of folks say prior, that has really been our ears out in the field. It's been our ears in the divisions, helping us understand how we can build better, whether it's resource toolkits, development of training, and just needs to keep our representation growing and being that attractive employer that hopefully we continue to be in Hershey.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Leslie. Now I'd like to turn it over to Fonati Abrokwa, Special Assistant to the President for Diversity and Inclusion at Milton Hershey School, and Barb Nichols, Director of Recruitment at Milton Hershey School.
Well, thank you. And it's a privilege as well to be amongst like-minded colleagues. I think I've collaborated with all of the ladies on the call. So it's humbling to hear and exciting to hear all the great work that's happening within our organizations. Like I mentioned, Barb Nichols will be expressing some of the strategies that we're using regarding our diversity recruiting efforts. And I'll just speak more to the broader overview of our strategic plan and initiatives. But before I do so, I wanted to make sure that for those who aren't familiar with the Milton Hershey School, we are a private pre-K through 12th grade school where qualifying students live on campus with all costs covered. So as you can imagine, to maintain and care for over 1,900 students, we hire a variety of professionals to accomplish our day-to-day operations. So that's vehicle maintenance. We have a hair shop on campus, so that includes our stylists, our grounds maintenance and trades, in addition to house parents and teachers, which is where most of our recruiting resources are utilized, and most of where our diversity efforts are really starting from the ground roots. So as part of our strategic plan, like many of others have shared, really after 2020, we wanted to reevaluate our commitment to inclusion, and my role was created. And within that, our diversity framework was created as well. And we also have 4 pillars of that framework, which is our workplace, which is where I work very closely with Barb's team for our recruiting efforts, professional development for staff, equity and compensation, and then engagement. And then we have 3 other pillars: our student experience. So how are we exposing our students to diverse experiences in the broader sense, but also exposing them to diverse staff, a representative of our student population. And then how are we engaging our alumni, making sure that our events are more inclusive, that they have a voice in our plan. And then also our vendors. We are also in the process of exploring a diversity supplier program. So looking at our school within those 4 buckets and everything that we do, how are we increasing equity within those processes? So our strategic plan is in our infancy stage, but our primary work has included our student experience. And so within that, we've created a DEI learning experiences last year, which was a requirement for all of our education and student life staff, which includes our support service staff, our psychology staff, our teachers, our house parents, anyone that falls within that education and student life sector. And with these experiences, we really wanted our staff to learn from the experiences of others and humanize each other's experiences. Again, with that, similar to what some of the other ladies expressed, knowing that we all come with different life experiences and biases. And so how do we talk about those things so that they're not bad words, and understand that doesn't make us necessarily bad, but we need to make sure that we recognize that so that they don't impact the decisions that we make and impact the experiences for our students. So we really started those sessions with, again, just listening to understand, teaching our stakeholders how to dialogue and have conversations that are difficult. So we were really proud of those experiences. And we now, from that, developed 5 modules that are now online. And we're looking to determine how do we push those out to the broader sense of our community. Because if you think about Milton Hershey School, we essentially have our workplace, which would be our company, but we're also a school and then a home. So we had to kind of prioritize and phase the work. And so that's why we decided that it was critical to start with the front-facing staff. So within our recruiting efforts, we also wanted to focus on how do we increase diversity within our teacher staff, knowing that there's a crisis for diversity within education. And so knowing that less professionals in general are going into the field, and then there's less diverse candidates graduating locally even, and then nationally. So what things do we need to do to offset those variances? So Barb and I work very closely and to collect data, and we're creating a data framework to which we're monitoring and tracking our success, so that we're working through a process to make recommendations to additional leadership on what are the things that we need to do as a school to attract the best talent and diverse talent. So we're working through that as well. And then, like others mentioned, what are we doing to advance the diverse and develop the diverse talent that we have within our organization? What does that look like? So we're looking at a process to not only enhance our employee engagement and development for all employees, but then an intentional focus for underrepresented populations. So in the process of establishing that as well. And then again, how do we connect our employees to diverse resources in the community? So we've partnered with the entities on the call again for the business resource guide. And then our families also are a huge component of this. So working with, what does this look like? What are our values? How do they align with how we interact and engage our families, who we consider a partner of ours, and we want them to feel like they belong and are a part of this journey with us. So our organization is really unique given the complexity of how we're designed, but we're really proud of where we've begun. And that's how we're looking at this, and we're encouraging all our staff to look at this as a journey, a continuous learning journey in the process. So once we've listened, learned, sustained, then we're back to listening, learning, sustaining. So that's part of the motto of our framework. And then again, ultimate the goal, impacting our students so that they're champions for equity and come back and can contribute to our community at large. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Barb to speak to some specifics on how we're attempting to attract diverse candidates through our processes.
Thanks, Fonati, and good evening, everyone. Nice to be here. Focusing on recruitment, we know that one of our biggest challenges is how unknown we are. Alicia, you shared that 98% of households have Hershey products, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, analytics that were recently done indicated that less than 60% of the population thereabouts in Pennsylvania was even aware of Milton Hershey School, which is kind of mind-blowing when you think of the fact that the school's been here since 1909, has over 10,000 graduates. We currently have just under 2,000 students. So, you know, we're just trying really hard to get past this best kept secret thing. And, you know, I think collectively we have a great story to tell as far as being an employment destination. And one of the initiatives that we are trying to do from a recruitment standpoint is to collaborate across our entities to just get the word out more to everyone about the employment opportunities at Hershey, and really making this a place where people want to come and live and work. So our biggest hurdle is getting the word out, because if we just stay very local, we're not necessarily going to get the diversity of talent and the quality of talent. We really need to work outwards. So we have very intentionally designed some strategies that it's not possible to hire a recruitment team, if you will, to go all over the nation or all over the state. So we've had to get really strategic with our electronic means. And there are some really innovative things that are now available. For example, something called geofencing. So right now, anyone who goes to Hershey Park, we know that when people come to Hershey, they get excited about Hershey and would be more open to living and working in Hershey. So anyone that goes to Hershey Park after they leave actually gets an employment ad for our house parent position on their cell phone, right? Everybody's got cell phones, everybody's eyes are on the cell phone. So that's one tactic that we've used in general to get the word out. But then if we get very specific in terms of, for example, the teacher recruitment, as Fonati shared, we've all heard nationally about the teacher shortage and the crisis, and that it's even getting worse as fewer people go into the profession, and also fewer teachers of color coming into the profession. So we have analytics that tell us those teachers of color that are out there, what schools do they teach at? And we will geofence those schools. So individuals going in and out of that school get advertisements for teacher opportunities when we are hiring teachers. And then through mediums like LinkedIn and so forth, we can identify teachers maybe who have graduated from programs with a higher percentage of teachers of color, or perhaps have been in fraternities or sororities that are specifically African-American or Latino. So just really consciously finding ways to get in front of a very, very wide and diverse audience has been our core strategy. We have been able to incrementally move the needle with teachers, and then we're hoping really that the word of mouth will start to get us some traction, because employee referral is very strong for us. Once people are working here, they feel really good about it and they tell their family and friends. So we're hoping to gain some momentum with some of our more recent hires, particularly for the teachers as well as the house parents. We've had much more success with diversity hiring with house parents because that's much more wide open in terms of the backgrounds and education that people can come from. But we really do need to have a national reach. So that's just a little bit about what we're doing from a diversity recruitment standpoint, and I'll wrap it there and turn it back over to Lauren.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And again, a sincere thanks to all the ladies, some phenomenal information that's given us some great questions from the audience. So a reminder for folks watching, please go ahead and put your questions in YouTube chat, and we will share those questions with the panelists. So the first question is actually going to be for you, Alicia. So it is impressive to hear your current initiatives. Do you have examples of where your changes have made a specific impact on individuals? Have you seen an impact on your employees' work products?
Yeah, I would tell you one really great story that ties to the Pathways Project is around our efforts to increase our connection to Black consumers. And so the co-lead of the Black Heritage Business Resource Group pitched an idea to some marketing leads to say, hey, I love working at Hershey, but I grew up in Memphis. And Memphis is kind of the seat of music in the US. And there's an event called Black Music Month, and it happens every July. It's nationally recognized. And I think there's a connection between that event, several of our brands, and our ability to get artists who are Black to do some overwraps for Hershey cookies and cream bars and Kit Kat bars, showing our support for the Black community, tying back to the Pathways Project and our initiatives from 2020, and to partner with one of our key customers, Target Corporation, to sell these bars in their stores. So talk about a phenomenal example of how diversity benefits your bottom line and how it engages your employees. So at the time, this individual was not working in this area, but he had these ideas and he felt comfortable and safe enough to get those ideas on the table with leaders in marketing. And they said, we love this idea. And so we partnered with Target. They did sell the products. Our CSR teams, who are wonderful, partnered with the Memphis Music Initiative, which is a nonprofit that provides paid internships to students of color in Memphis, studying careers in the arts. And the students were just enthralled with this initiative. You can go online and you can see a commercial with a song done by Zora, one of the students. And she was just thrilled when she saw a commercial that we did featuring her song. And she had no idea that we were going to do that. And one of the cool things is that this turned into a job for the employee that came up with this idea, right? And so this is also a business program that is in our commercial strat plan, right? So you can see how all of this work comes together in that example. And this employee is incredibly engaged. Teams are incredibly engaged because they help design the campaign, so they are invested in it. Our core customer, Target, is excited. This program is going to roll out nationally. And it's just a great example of inclusion in action.
Wow, what cool, impactful stories. Thank you so much. The next question I'm going to ask both Lynette and Leslie. So first to you, Lynette, have you run into barriers in getting support within your organization for your diversity initiatives?
I would say, like any organization, you're going to have some level of barriers, partly because there are going to be individuals within the organization that don't understand the value of diversity and inclusion. One of the things that's really helpful within Penn State Health is our CEO, Steve Massini. Our senior executive team is very much on board in terms of supporting diversity and inclusion. When we have programs, you will see them participating in the programs. We've created a Celebrate Diversity series, which is an awareness program, not true educational programs, so that people can be exposed to different aspects of diversity with their own comfort, on their own time. So there might be displays up, like the one that we had most recently was for veterans, and we actually profiled the veterans in our organization and pointed out this is another aspect of diversity that we can celebrate. And so individuals come on board in terms of doing it that way. So I would say the biggest barrier is just helping individuals to understand the value and the benefit to all of us by advancing diversity and inclusion.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Lynette. Leslie?
I almost want to piggyback on every single thing you just said. The answer is, of course, without a doubt. But if it doesn't start at the top, so piggybacking off of what Lynette shared, starting with our CEO, John Lawn, and our senior executive team, really locking arms and joining forces with the DE&I Council to help try to immerse everyone into just more of an education and an awareness. So sharing the awareness calendar for 2022 in full, which was more all-encompassing and all-inclusive. To your point, a great example is Veterans Day or Mental Health Day or Mental Health Awareness Month. There's so much more to diversity that for us, we had to spend, and we will always spend a lot of time just educating. And the more we can do the listening sessions and then follow back up with more education, I'm hoping that we will continue to overcome some of those barriers, but absolutely, I think we will always have them just as we continue to push forward, as I know we all want to, faster.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Leslie. This next question is for Fonati. Are you doing things to encourage your students to consider careers in teaching?
Yes, we are. Actually, with the encouragement from Barb, we're going into some of our legacy classes to encourage students to go into the track, as well as our Alumni Association created a scholarship for students of color who are interested in or who've committed to going into the education field. So they're awarded that scholarship. I think 5 students are selected, and they're awarded a scholarship to pursue education field. And that also is in honor of one of our employees who passed away, who was a big proponent for, who was a longstanding employee here and a big proponent for students of color.
Thank you so much, Fonati. All right, the next question I am going to ask, well, actually, first I have a comment, I believe. I am a proud Latina and a true example of how Hershey is investing in diverse talent. Thank you for that. So I just wanted to share that with the panelist, as I am confident that she feels good to be in this community and certainly surrounded by the commentary we've gotten from this group today. The next question I'm actually going to point towards everyone. So I'm going to start with you first, Alicia. Are there things the Hershey community could do to assist you in your efforts to develop more diverse workforces?
Yeah, so I think some of the things we have already talked about. So in terms of providing resources for folks that are coming into the community about where do I go to get my hair done? I moved here myself nearly 9 years ago. And honestly, that is always one of the first services that I seek out during any relocation, right? That's important. It may not sound that important, but it's important for many people of color. That knowing where you can go to find the religious service that you would like, where you can find the social activities, the fraternal organizations that you might be a part of, creating that community is incredibly important. And I'll tell you, the guide that the entities have created is particularly meaningful post-pandemic, because one of the trends that I think many of us are dealing with is now both the advent of remote work, which is a boom, but also with many of our early in career folks, because of remote work, many don't have to necessarily pick up and physically move to have an opportunity. And so we are experiencing more folks that say, I'm really involved socially with this group, or I have to be with my grandmother every Sunday for the family meal. And after the pandemic, I've just reevaluated what my priorities are. And I love your company, I love your brands, but I don't necessarily want to pick up and relocate to work there. And so I think the more that we can be agile and flexible and really tout the services and the benefits that we have, and just the wonderful employee value proposition of living and working in the central Pennsylvania area, I think the more attractive and competitive it makes all of our entities.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Lynette, how about from your point of view?
Yeah, and it's a much simpler thing that I've heard frequently from our new employees is when community members say hello, they smile. When they see individuals, they create a feeling of you are welcome. That has a huge impact in terms of individuals who are from diverse backgrounds, who may be very nervous about moving. They may have been in a more diverse urban environment and are coming to a smaller town and have perceptions about what that experience is going to be like. And so when those misperceptions, which they end up being, are dispelled, they feel awesome about being in the Hershey area, and they tell other people that individuals here are, they feel embraced, and it makes a big difference. The other thing that I commend the Hershey community for is participating in these types of events where people learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, learning about differences and feeling comfortable in terms of how you interact with an individual who may be different. So the fact that this has been going on for so many years and there's so many people that participate says a lot about this community and how welcoming it is.
Well said. Thanks so much, Lynette. Leslie, anything different from your point of view?
I'd echo just the welcoming part of it all, knowing that we want to continue to attract, and the little bit of difference, obviously with Hershey Entertainment is we are in Hershey, so the continuous need and want of folks to move to this area, whether it's seasonal and or from a full-time standpoint, is that welcoming feeling, letting people know that they do not need to move to a Harrisburg/Lancaster to find all the resources and the networks that they're looking for. That's why I think referencing exactly that network, that neighborhood guide and those different resources of what people want when they come to a community and what they're expecting, the more we can just share that more openly. And to your point, investing in these types of events and having the community talk and speak to each other more openly is only a way that will continue to make folks, and I'll use your words, Lynette, feel comfortable.
Excellent. Thank you. And how about Fonati?
I would echo everything that was shared, but also intentional conversation, even with youth and young professionals, because often what you'll hear is that young professionals, like Leslie said, want to navigate away from Hershey or away from our area. And so the more we can talk about the benefits and the value and the things that Hershey in the area has to offer, we're continuing to grow that population as well. And then the other thing, similar to what Alicia expressed, is the simple things like getting your hair done, but also schools. Individuals who are relocating to the area want to know what diversity is, what things and efforts and initiatives are happening in schools as well. So having conversations even with your children about diverse experiences and exposing them to diverse experiences and diverse populations also help parents who are relocating to feel like their children belong. Because often their children don't sign up to be uprooted from wherever they're coming. So that's a huge deterrent, or could be, if families feel like their children aren't safe or belong in the schools. So I think continuing for opportunities like this for us to have conversations, especially when we're collaborating with our neighbors in Dairy Township School District, I think only helps us as a larger community to be more welcoming and inclusive to not only our community members, but those coming into our community.
Excellent points. Thank you. And how about you, Barb? Any different thoughts? Barb, you are on mute. Sorry.
I agree with everything that was said. I think that we all can significantly influence that just by being welcoming and thinking about people. And one other idea, just, we're upon the holidays. So who do each of us know where maybe they've recently come here, and do they have someplace to go for the holidays? And do they just feel welcomed and part of the community. So inviting somebody new to a meal or a family celebration, that kind of thing is huge at this time of year.
Excellent recommendations. Thank you all so much. The next question I'm going to ask Alicia and Lynette. So first to you, Alicia. Can you share anything you're doing specifically to help Asian communities or to attract Asian communities as well?
Yeah, so our focus on representation and including and increasing representation for people of color definitely includes our Asian communities. And we are focusing in a couple of ways. So from a representation standpoint, we are seeking out candidate pools, talking about the benefits of a career at the Hershey Company, getting folks connected to folks in that community at our organization. But we're also reaching out into the community. So our Asian Business Resource Group had a phenomenal Lunar New Year celebration this year at Hershey's Chocolate World. And I have to say, so many people in the community came out for the events. It was such a meaningful time. And there was just a lot of excitement about that. We've also partnered with Asian Americans Advancing Justice. And we had them come in and do some sessions for our workforce to talk about and to bring awareness to the Stop Asian Hate movement that has recently needed to be in place. And so it's important that when people are considering where they want to work, where they want to live, they want to feel as though the community gets them, understands them, and also understands some of the challenges that they and their family members face. And so having these conversations with our employees who may not be experiencing those things, hopefully, in the central PA and in the Hershey area, it's important because our employees still have to understand what's happening coast to coast, right? And some of those situations are happening, unfortunately, with greater frequency on the coast. But those kinds of efforts are incredibly important. And we are focusing in on representation and increasing representation for our Asian colleagues. Yes.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Lynette?
Yeah, so I'd like to add, similar to what the Hershey's doing in terms of like looking at how do we increase the representation within the organization. We're establishing an international workers group for those who are coming in from other countries, primarily driven by the fact that we will be hiring almost 300 nurses, international nurses, to make up for the fact that there is such a shortage of nurses throughout the country, and the majority of them are coming from the Philippines. And so it's been an opportunity for us to sort of help, like our workforce understand the diversity within the Asian community. And so we have a number of events to raise awareness. We just had an event celebrating the Filipino population. We had Diwali not that long ago. We will be having the Lunar Chinese New Year coming up later on in the year. And then for Asian Awareness Month, we usually do spots on the news, with ABC 27 being the primary one, where we make sure that people understand what we are doing in terms of addressing the needs and interests of our Asian community.
Excellent points. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, the next question I'm going to turn over to Fonati and Barb. So first, Fonati, I'll put it towards you. With the emerging diversity that our schools are seeing, how can we attract more diverse educators in our buildings?
I think, like expressed earlier, encouraging diverse candidates to go, or young people to go into the field, and I think developing talent as well. I think that's one of the things that we're discussing as an organization is, how do we create fellowships for young professionals to either have job changes or, create teachers who, perhaps or were exploring different careers. So I think just promoting the value of educators. Obviously, we need educators. So encouraging young professionals to and young people to go into the field. And then being open to allowing professionals to seek out job changes in different stages of their professional careers. I think those are all out of the box thinking that we have to figure out how to address the challenge. But I think being open and understanding the value of encouraging folks to go into the field.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Barb.
Yes, I think grow your own is going to become more and more common. As recruiters and employers, we can't be as passive, if you will, as we've been in the past. And so there are some key areas like healthcare, like teachers, like trades, where we very consciously have to build our own. And one of the comments that Fonati made that I just want to highlight is we traditionally think about that as the youth, and we absolutely do need to do that with the youth. But there is this re-careering standpoint that we need to think about, where people may be mid-career or even later in their career, and we can't just think about the 16-year-old or the 19-year-old. One of the things that we've found really effective with our house parent recruitment, as an example, are early retirees, people who have wrapped up one career, that maybe they're in their 50s or 60s and they're not ready for a rocking chair. And so the idea of a house parent position is something that's really appealing and intriguing to them. So I think we have to really be very innovative in terms of growing our own.
Excellent. Thank you so much. And those are all of our questions for this evening. So again, I wanted to say a sincere thanks to this group this evening. I've learned so much. And am incredibly engaged with the information on how I can continue to work to try to make an impact. Thanks to everyone that is watching. Thanks for the great questions in the chat. And very much appreciate the support of this diversity program, which helps support a lot of the things that we talked about here this evening. You may have noticed that you're watching on Hershey All Things Diversity, a newly established YouTube channel. This is the new home of our presentations. Please subscribe and share with any interested friends. I think a lot of the themes that we heard here this evening is we can all work together to continue to drive this positive impact in our community, to grow, to bring new people to our community, and to sustain ourselves. So again, a sincere thanks for all of the ladies that joined me here this evening. I truly appreciate your time. Thanks for everyone watching. Please share.